I want to welcome now, after this long build-up, the great Abigail Shrier, who's been on the show before. She's a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute and, of course, a contributing editor at the Free Press. Abigail, your investigation today about the anti-Israel indoctrination sweeping American public schools. We have a clip, too, so let's take a look at this clip from a meeting of the United Teachers Los Angeles, the main trade union of the LA school district.
And so some of the things that we can do as teachers is to organize. We just have to be really intelligent on how we do that. We have to know we're under the microscope. We have to know that Zionists and others are going to try to catch us in any way that they can to get us into trouble. So I help the students to organize. We go to those actions, and a lot of us here that have been to those actions have brought our students. Now, I don't take the students in my personal car. I have members of our organization who are not LAUSD employees. They take those students. And I just happen to be at the same place at the same time with them. It's like tomorrow I go to church and some of my students are at the church. Oh, wow, hey, how you doing? We just happen to be at the same place at the same time. And look, we just happen to be at a pro-Palestine action, same place, same time. The students, they just so happen to want to organize a teach-in. And so students at our school, at your school, Maggie Lawrence, and several high schools now have organized their own teach-ins where they they inform other students about the genocide that's taking place in Palestine. What we do as teachers, of course, is to advise, to help. Naturally, this is a topic for most of our students who's pretty new, so we can help them, but we're not going to tell them what to say. But we can help them to some research and stuff like that. That's our job as teachers is to educate them. So how do we do all of this without getting fired? That's the $1 million question, right? And I don't know how in the hell we have not been fired yet, because I know for sure they have tried. But we have to organize. That's the bottom line. If they come after one of us, the district has to know that it will be a bigger headache for them to try to touch one of us than it will be to just leave us alone. That's the dynamic here. They have to know that we're organized and we are going to put up a fight, and they cannot get rid of us.
Sneaky.
Okay.
He almost got away with it, too.
Yeah. So this piece that just went up at the Free Press is just an absolutely bombshell investigation, typical of the inimitable Abigail Shrier. I think we've called the piece the Kinderfada Revolution. And if there's been one big story since October 7th in terms of American education, it's been the story of the college campuses, which everyone saw. Students cheering for Hamas, setting up these illegal encampments, some of them getting arrested, often not getting charged at all. But what your piece today, Abigail, argues is that this is not just a college phenomenon, and it's not just an elite phenomenon in private, hyper-progressive schools. You have the goods to show that this is a national coordinated campaign across American public schools. I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about this piece, maybe starting with the clip that we just saw. What were we watching there?
We were watching California's largest local public sector union at a meeting. This is a 35,000 member union coming together to coordinate the activity of anti-Israel indoctrination of public school children starting in kindergarten. And they're specifically discussing how do we do it without getting fired. And this is a lot like what we saw and what I wrote about with the gender ideology indoctrination in the schools. It is the result of a coordinated effort. They are taking fringe ideas and they are absolutely indoctrinating public school children to hate Israel.
Abigail, how are they getting away with it? Because I think most people will see a clip like that and they'll say one of two things. One off, crazy guy, and they'll dismiss it that way, and I'd love for you to demolish that argument. And the second is, if this is happening, why are the parents not having an uprising against it? Can you contend with both of those claims?
Yes. So the reason that this is able to happen is because it operates through deception. Just like with gender ideology in the schools and the racism, we saw the anti-white settler colonialist idea that was pushed in the schools. Now you have the anti-Israel, Jews are the white, settler colonialist oppressors idea. It is being pushed in public schools. It's funded by a constellation of very radical anti-Israel groups. They are supplying curricula to teachers. And then there's a coordinated effort among the educators to deceive parents. They are shoving this stuff into courses like ethnic studies, but even math, art, science, social emotional learning, and we are seeing it all over the country. I looked at all kinds of states where this is being pushed. And in those, this is what I want people to know, in those schools where teachers are pushing this anti-Israel curricula and materials, again, supplied by radical organizations, where they're doing that, we are seeing intimidation, harassment, and violence towards Jewish students.
Before we get, I wanted you to tell some specific stories. I think they will shock people about what's happening to individual Jewish students. But just to give people a sense of how pervasive this isn't just happening in ethnic studies. You have this unbelievable, you have so many materials that are inside this piece. One of them is a pie chart that I'm looking at. I'm going to hold it up, even though people aren't going to be able to see it, because it's just so astonishing. This is a pie chart that was shown in a math class in a public school, in an elementary school in California. The chart is labeled People Killed Since September 29, 2000, and it is divided into Palestinians and Israelis. In other words, their way of teaching about, I guess, ratios or a pie graph is by showing number of people killed on both sides of this war. There was another example you include about a class at a Cupertino high school in which a physics teacher asked students to consider the effect of Israel's bombing of Gaza on climate change. Okay, so this is this is everywhere, which your piece shows. Talk to us about what happens to individual students living inside this reality, Jewish students, when this is the kind of sentiment that's coming at them from all different courses in their school career, some as young as kindergarten. What's happening to individual students? And maybe tell us the story of a young woman you write about called Ella.
You know, Ella is one example of one young woman who was so thoroughly harassed during the course of a year that when she complained about it, when she brought a complaint of the anti-Israel harassment, her family was Israeli. She was so relentlessly harassed, not only by students, but by teachers, that the administrators decided not to investigate the bullying incidents, even though they had witnessed some of them. This young woman tried to sing a Hebrew song, Yesh Bi'ahava. The song is There Is Love Inside Me. You know, this is a feel-good song. And she dedicated it to her family in Israel. This was at a talent show in which many students were singing songs from their ethnic heritage. She was pulled aside afterward and told that there would be a meeting about her song because it was offensive to people. And this went on all years. The Jewish club tried to put up posters of the hostages. They were torn down by teachers. I also tell the story of a 12-year-old girl who was chased through the halls by two boys, and who yelled they wanted to kill her. I mean, this was after a long period of harassment by her classmates. Her classmates referred to her only as Jew during the course of the year. When she was crying after October 7th in class because she still had family that she wasn't able to make contact with in Israel. This was the first day back at school after the October 7th massacre. The teachers told her she could only go to the bathroom to collect herself after she read a portion from his book, from his materials, celebrating the warm relations between the Palestinians and the Israelis and saying that they actually got along really well. So this was the kind of humiliation the kids have been subjected to, and yes, it's national.
Abigail, I mean, that's the question that I suspect people come back to of how pervasive is this. I mean, first of all, it's astonishing to see how incredibly dim some of these people are. This woman, Guadalupe Carrasco Cardona, who says they talk about anti-Semitism, but what they do is conflate, and I want listeners and viewers to pay attention to this. What they do is conflate. Part of that is by putting the star on their flag. Religion has nothing to do with it. This stuff is psychotically stupid. But William Shattuck, who is a teacher at John Adams Middle School, said, "We know that good history education is political education." That I haven't read a sentence that wrong in a very long time. How pervasive is that idea amongst people in the teachers union that their job is a form, regardless if it's Israel, is just a general form of political indoctrination? That's what they're tasked with doing for your children.
That's a very, very common sentiment among teachers today. It's all over the unions. And they're supplied, remember, teachers are given today, it's not like the old days where they had a textbook to read. They are now given broad discretion to teach materials that come from online sources. Many of them are supplied by very, very radical organizations. And there's very little oversight because, of course, children are accessing them through their computers. So it's hard for parents to even see these materials. So that's why we're seeing, I mean, when you see the explosions on campus, when we saw that, what we were seeing was something that had been baked in, and it started in primary school.
What are parents doing about this? Like the parents that find out that their child is being harassed, that their child is too scared to wear a Jewish symbol like Batya's necklace in school. What are they doing about it? I think we might have lost Abigail.
Did we lose Abigail? Oh, there she's back. Is she there? Is she frozen?
She's frozen. She looks great. Okay, Abs, we can see you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I was asking you, what are parents doing about it?
Yes, I mean, right now there are grassroots organizations across the country that have arisen to deal with this in the last couple of years. But this mass indoctrination of public school children, which we have been witnessing for the past 5 years, is really something that took a lot of people by surprise. So really, moms have started organizations. They actually are grassroots, and they have been collecting and documenting this to try to make a difference and show it to school boards. So far, school boards are mostly ignoring them. And teachers' unions are proceeding as usual. They are completely ignoring them, and there is no accountability. Teachers who are pushing these radical views in the classroom get no punishment. And even one teacher last year in California who was supposedly put on leave is back in I was just told, is back in the classroom this semester and was already having the kids draw as part of his art class, this is at Berkeley, was having them draw the cartoon depiction of Handala. That is the Palestinian symbol of resistance. That was this is the very beginning of school. That's their art project. And then he concluded by saying, "Welcome to the resistance." This is what's going on in our classrooms. And there is unfortunately far too little pushback.
Abigail, I want our viewers to know that all of your work, as far as I'm concerned, what I can see has been just massively devoted to your love of country. You started by exposing the horrible mutilation of children, and then your second book was about how we're making them mentally ill, and now you're talking about this issue so beautifully. My question is, in the clip we started with, that teacher seemed to think that there were rules on the books that made what he was doing wrong. And I guess my question is, how much of this horrible things that you're describing are actually against the rules and the rules are not being enforced, and how much of them are actually allowed and legal in terms of how the schools function and the unions and the teachers?
It's a great question. Something a lot of people don't know is that public school teachers actually don't have First Amendment rights in the classroom to teach whatever they want. It is tightly controlled. They are considered an employee of the state. It's the state speech. And the districts set the curricula, and the legislatures set the curricula. So if they wanted to fire teachers for teaching things that go against their curricula or aren't part of the curricula, they would be in their rights to do that. The problem is the school districts are either unwilling or do not want to punish teachers or correct them. So that's what we're seeing. We're seeing legislatures look the other way. We're seeing school districts refuse to enforce their own rules. And we're seeing teachers push a radical anti-Israel agenda. And the result of that is tremendous hostility and harassment of Jewish students in public schools in K through 12.
This is the kind of story that should lead to congressional hearings. It's called the Kinderfada Revolution. I recommend it to every person watching this. And if you know anything about Abigail Shrier's work, this will only be the beginning of a longer term investigative project. So Abigail, I know it's really early in LA. Thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on the Dodgers.
Thank you so much.